90 minutes into a 10-hour flight, a woman smells a burnt match. That's all. The whole thing, one match. Somewhere over the Atlantic, 35,000 feet up, 3 days before Christmas. She's a flight attendant. She's been doing this long enough to know what an airplane smells like: jet fuel, coffee, reheated chicken, 200 people breathing the same air for the 4-hour strike. Airplanes do not smell like sulfur. So she starts walking aisle by aisle, 197 souls on that plane, and she is checking every single row with her nose. 3 months after two planes went into two buildings, and everybody in her profession learned exactly what her job is. And in the window seat, sitting by himself, is a very large man holding a lit match. She tells him there's no smoking on the aircraft, and he says, okay. He promises to stop. Now hold on to that. Hold on to the fact that she walked away because she had no reason on God's earth not to, and hold on to what she smelled, because that smell is why you've spent the last 20 years of your life standing in your socks on a filthy airport floor, holding your belt in your teeth while your dignity in a gray plastic bin. I'm Tug. This is Old Salty Bastards, the show. And 1 year ago, they told us we could put our shoes back on. No apology, no real press conference where somebody stands up and says, hey, sorry about the 2 decades. So on July 8th, 2025, Secretary at that time of Homeland Security walked up to a microphone at Reagan National and announced that starting immediately at every airport in this country, you're getting to keep your shoes on. And the reason she gave was that the technology had improved.
TSA will no longer require travelers to remove their shoes when they go through our security checkpoints. This is something that I know for quite some time people have talked about and discussed, and we know that when President Trump was elected that he pledged to make life better for all Americans, and that includes those who are travelers going through our busy airports. We want to improve this travel experience, but while maintaining safety standards. TSA first implemented the no shoes policy in 2006, almost 20 years ago. And in those 20 years, since that policy was put in place, our security technology has changed dramatically. It's evolved. TSA has changed. We have a multi-layered, a whole-of-government approach now to security and to the environment that people anticipate and experience when they come into an airport that has been honed and it's been hardened. We are very confident that we can continue to provide hospitality to folks and for American travelers and for those visiting our country while maintaining the same standard of security for passengers and for our homeland.
Now, sit with that for 1 second, because the technology had improved in 2011 when the Homeland Secretary at that time said the shoes rule was going away soon. 14 more years. 14 more years of 150 million people a year hopping on one foot next to a conveyor belt. 14 more years of 80-year-old women in support hose being told to step on the same square of linoleum that 40,000 pairs of bare feet stood on before them. 14 more years of you and me and every grandmother in America performing a ritual. And then one Tuesday, they just stopped. And nothing happened. Nothing happened. No planes came down, not one. Which tells you everything you need to know about what that rule was actually for. And I promise you, we're going to get there. But first, I got to tell you about the day before the match. The day before in Paris, our man tried to get on that same flight. And here's the part no one tells you: got caught. He walks up to the counter like a man who slept in a dish, because he did. He's 28 years old, got no check luggage. You have a transatlantic flight, it's 10 hours. And this guy's got nothing. He bought that ticket with cash. And the screeners at Charles de Gaulle look at him and their gut goes off. They pull him. They start asking him questions and he can't answer them straight. So they kicked him up to the French National Police. Now, this is the system. This is the machine we built. This is it working. Human beings looking at another human being going, something is wrong with this guy. So the French police run him. His British passport is real. His name is not on any list. And so they don't x-ray him. They don't run a dog over him. They let him go. He misses his flight because the questioning took so long. And you know what American Airlines did? In customer service organization, reissue his ticket free of charge. Puts him up in a hotel room by the airport for the night. Now listen, I want to be fair here. This is outstanding customer service. If the French police haul me out of line for acting like a lunatic, nobody's buying me a room. I can't get a second bag of pretzels out of these people. I asked them for a whole can of Diet Coke one time, and the girl looked at me like I asked to fly the fucking plane. I read it again. He got flagged. He got interrogated by the police of a sovereign nation. He got so thoroughly caught that he missed his flight, and the airline paid for his room. That night, he goes to an internet cafe and emails a man in Pakistan and says, I got stopped. What do I do? The man says, try again tomorrow. So he does. Same flight, same route, same shoes. And here's what kills me. Somebody had already figured out the shoes 5 months earlier. They pulled the same man out of line in Tel Aviv, went over him with a fine tooth comb, made him take his shoes off, found nothing, and then set him in the back of the airplane next to an armed sky marshal anyway, because they weren't looking at his footwear, they were looking at him. Nobody in Paris looked at his feet, not because they were stupid, because in December of 2001, there wasn't a checkpoint on this plane that cared what was in your shoe. And the man walked onto the airplane with 10 ounces of plastic explosives in his soles, enough to open the side of a 767 like a beer can. And the machine had every chance. Twice. The machine said, he's fine. Get him a hotel. Now, here's the part they left off the evening news. The bomb didn't work. Not because anybody stopped it, not because a screener caught it, or a dog hit on it, or a machine went off. The fuse needed to be dry. And that man had been sitting in wool socks and rubber-soled boots for 10 hours across an ocean. His feet did what your feet do. He sweat through it. He sweat through the fuse of his own bomb. That's why he was burning match after match after match in a window seat like a man trying to start a campfire in the rain. That's why there was enough sulfur in the air for a woman 4 rows back to smell it. The most dangerous thing on that airplane was neutralized, in part by foot odor. And this country looked at that, looked at it dead in the eye, and built a rule about shoes. So let's talk about the machine we built. $11 billion a year, 60,000 federal employees, 2.5 million Americans a day funneled through a system whose entire architecture is designed around one single premise, that the last guy is the next guy. You use shoes. Now everybody's shoes. Somebody talked about liquids. Now everybody's liquids. And so we're all agreed as a nation that your grandmother's shampoo is a WMD unless it's under 3.5 ounces, in which case it becomes hair care products, which is a chemistry I would love to have explained to me. 3.4 ounces of shampoo, that's a threat. 3.3, that's a Tuesday. Meanwhile, they never once said, hey, what about that guy who's already fucking weird? because in 2015, the Inspector General sent undercover people through those checkpoints with fake weapons and fake bombs. You know what? 67 out of 70 got through. That's right, 67 out of 70. That is not a security failure. A security failure is when you miss one. That is a theater, and the ushers are wearing badges. And I want to be careful here because I know a lot of you have a kid or a cousin or a buddy working a checkpoint. That TSO on that line didn't write the fucking rules. He's making maybe 20 bucks an hour to tell a plumber from Toledo to take off his boots. And he's going to do that 400 times before lunch. And every single one of those 400 people look at him like he's the problem. The guy is not the problem. The problem is we spent 20 years, $200 billion building a cathedral. The sacrament is you, barefoot, apologizing to a stranger for your own belt buckle because it makes you feel something. That's what it's for. That's what it was always for. They took a photograph of a thing that went wrong once and they made you reenact it every week for 20 years so that you would feel like somebody was in charge. And then this is the part that really gets you. They sold it back to you. 80 bucks. That's pre-check. 80 bucks in a background check, and now your shoes stay on. Your belt stays on, your laptop stays in the bag. 120 for a gold entry. And when they killed the shoe rule last year, the first question a reporter asked was, well, hang on, is anybody going to buy pre-check anymore? The secretary said, oh, absolutely, because pre-check people still don't have to take off their belts or their coats. There it is, right there in public, on camera. They inconvenienced you on purpose, and then they charged you $80 to be inconvenienced less. And when they gave you one piece of it back for free, they had to go back on television and reassure the paying customers that there was still enough integrity left in the base package to justify the upgrade. That's not security, that's a cable company. All right, back to the airplane. She walks away. He promised to stop. A few minutes later, she comes back down the aisle and he's hunched over. That all the way down in the seat, and he will not answer her. She says, what are you doing? And he comes up at her and she sees it, and she sees a shoe in his lap, and the fuse coming out of it, and a lit match in his hand. She grabs him. He is 6'4" and better than 200 pounds, and she's a flight attendant. He throws her on the floor of that aircraft. She grabs him. He throws her down again. She screams for help, and she runs. And she does not run to the cockpit. She does not run for cover. She runs to the galley. And she comes back with a pitcher of water. The other flight attendant gets there first. She goes at him with her bare hands, and he bites down on her. He bites her fucking thumb down to the bone, and she does not let go of him. And that first woman comes back and throws the water in his face. Then the airplane stands up. Not the government, not the $11 billion, not one machine, not one badge, not one federal employee. Passengers, salesmen and college kids and somebody's dad going home for Christmas. They pile on him. They tie that man to the seat with seatbelt extensions, headphone cords, because that is what was available at 35,000 feet. There's a doctor on board, and he finds a sedative in a medical kit and puts a needle in his arm and puts his ass out. Then we have two F-15s come up off the deck and walk that airplane into Boston. Everybody lived. Every one of the 197. Salty Seabag. This one came from a guy named Ray. Retired engine company, 31 years in Ohio. Ray's flying to his daughter's wedding. He's got a titanium hip on a roof that collapsed on him in 2009, and a plate in his forearm from a car he cut somebody out of. So he does what he always does. He walks up, tells them, hey, I'm going to light up here, and here's why. Hold, secondary, gloves, the wand, the whole tour. 15 minutes with his hands out like he's been fitted for a suit while his wife holds his shoes. And behind him in line, a guy sails through and gets about a foot down the concourse before someone realizes he's got a loaded magazine in the bottom of his laptop bag. Forget it. It was there. Honest to God, without it. They find thousands of guns at checkpoints every year, and the overwhelming majority of them are loaded. And almost every one of them belongs to somebody who just plain forgot. Ray's question was, why me? Ray, brother, it's not why you, it's why not the other guy. You got searched because you were easy to search. You announced yourself, you handed them a reason. The machine loves a man who volunteers. 31 years. Your body is a receipt for other people's lives. And this country made you stand there with your arms out because you were honest about it. You got a story like Ray's? I want it. Call the line. It's 1-833-OSB show or the form. There's a link on the Facebook page. Go over there and fill it out. Somebody reads every one of them, and it's me, just me. And now it's time for Am I the Salty Asshole? This one's from a fellow out of Georgia, Army, 2 tours. He paid for an extra row aisle seat. And if you're 6'2" like he is, that seat's not a luxury, it's a medical device. Family board's late. Mom's got a kid, maybe 9. They didn't pay for seats, so the airline scattered him. She asked him to move. Middle seat, row 38, back by the lab. He said no. And the plane turns on him. The lady across the aisle is shaking her head. Somebody says something about it being Christmas. Somebody's got a phone up, recording as usual. So he stands up. He explains himself loud. Tells the whole cabin he paid for that seat and that her failure to plan is not his emergency. And he served this country. And if she wanted her family together, she should have thought about that before she booked basic economy. And he sits down and he's shaking his head and he can't figure out why he doesn't feel good. He's asking if he is the salty asshole. Well, buddy, you're not the asshole for the no. The no was correct. You paid for that seat. She didn't. That's the entire transaction. She gambled with her kid's comfort and lost, and she went shopping for a stranger to cover the bet. And you were under no obligation to. Anybody tells you different has never sat in the middle seat 4 hours with a bad hip. You're the asshole for the speech because the no took 2 seconds. The speech took 90. And she already knew she lost after the first 2. You didn't say no to protect your seat. You had that already. You said all that other stuff so 180 strangers would agree with you. And that's what you brought your service record into it for. You cashed in 2 tours to win an argument with a lady holding a 9-year-old. You didn't need them. That's the whole thing. You didn't need one of them. The verdict. Not the asshole for what you did, asshole for what you said after. I'll tell you why that matters. And then I'm going to tell you the man's name. Because on the 22nd of December, 2001, a plane full of strangers who owed each other absolutely nothing decided they gave it a damn about each other. Nobody made an announcement. Nobody deputized them. There was no lane, no baggage, no $80 upgrade. 2 women in uniform put their bodies between a bomb and a cabin. About a dozen people who will never be famous held that man down with cords off their headphones. Christina Jones, that's the one he bit. 20 years an American Airlines flight attendant, single mom, 7-year-old boy at home in Tampa. She said afterward that she only grabbed him the way that she did because of what she knew about September 11th. She said the crews who died that day were heroes. That knowing how they died is what gave her the nerve. Probably going to butcher her name, but Hermes Monterio. That's the one who smelled the match. Came to this country from Peru, flew for American since 1992, 2 sons, got thrown down on the deck of that aircraft twice, got back up twice, and came back with water. And the man in the window seat was named Richard Reed. He's 52 now, 3 life sentence plus 110 years in a hole in the Colorado desert. And that motherfucker will die there. And he is not the point of this episode. Because in 2006, this country looked at that airplane and it looked at what saved it and built a rule about shoes. It did not build a rule about a man who buys a cash ticket with no bags. It did not build a rule about listening to the screeners in Paris who already knew. It did not build a single thing around 2 flight attendants who noticed a man wouldn't eat. And it sure in the hell did not build one thing around the only asset on that airplane that actually worked, which was 197 people deciding all at once without meaning that this was not going to happen today. You cannot put that in a bin. So they never tried. They spent 20 years searching your feet for a bomb that a woman found with her nose. And then last July, they said, never mind, keep her shoes. And nothing happened. It was always the guy in 22C. It was always you. So next time you're in that line and it's 90 minutes long and someone in front of you is arguing about a jam of jar, do me a favor. Look around. Look at all those people, all those miserable, tired, ordinary bastards with their neck pillows, their kids, and their bad backs. That's the security. That is it. That's the whole system. Those people right there. The government's got $11 billion in a machine that misses 67 out of 70. You've got 200 people who will stand up to hold the door for them. Help the old girl with the bags give up the middle seat to the kid if it doesn't cost you your spine. And if it does, say no like a grown man and then shut the fuck up about it. If you ever smell a match at 35,000 feet, that's the show. Find us on the page. Tell your buddy. Leave a review if you're the kind of animal who does that. This is Tug. Stay salty, you magnificent bastards.